welcome again. I'm your host, Booqii, and today I've got with me my cousin, mental health professional from the United States, and we'll continue today on the topic of sobriety and mental well-being. And I will let her introduce herself because she will tell you more about what she does and also about her Grounded podcast. So over to you, Sister Tolu.
Thank you, Booqii. I am so excited to be part of what you're doing because I believe it's a great thing. So my name is Tolu Osemwege. I live in the U.S. I am a mental health professional, and I get the privilege of working with people, along this life's journey because it can be hard. And a lot of times people need someone to walk alongside with them, to talk with them, help them talk and process what they're going through. And that's what I get to do on a daily basis. I love it. I also do life coaching too, which I love to do. And like you mentioned, I do have a podcast. It's called the Grounded Podcast. It started in April of this 2023. So that's new. But I'm excited for the opportunity to help people along their journeys, whatever that will look like.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was watching one of your episodes on the Grounded podcast, and I like what you guys do on there, in terms of looking at, the mind, the spirit, and the body. I think it's quite interesting because, as human beings, there's so many aspects to us. And of course, on this podcast, I focus more on, well-being and sobriety. What would you say, in your experience, working with different people, is the main sort of trigger for sort of alcohol addiction?
Well, before we get to addiction, we would even talk about alcohol consumption, right? And there are many reasons why people would consume alcohol. I don't even know that we have enough time to finish all the reasons today. But, a few of those are just being cultural, depending on where you come from. I spent some days in Ireland, and and I spent some time with my cousin, and I got to find out that the Irish like to drink they like to drink alcohol. And one of the things that they actually say is if you don't drink with them, then they suspect you, like you probably have something off your sleeves that you're hiding. So consuming alcohol can be a cultural thing. It could also be just a social experience. It could be how people fit into a clique, even in the workspace. You want to be part of the workspace, then everybody's going for happy hour after work. That's something we do in the US. I don't know if they do happy hour here in the UK. And some people, they wait to the end of the week, till Friday. Like, I've worked all week, now I need to relax, like a reward. And for some people, that's big. Like, they need to be rewarded for the hard work, and the reward is going someplace, just drinking, having fun. So I'm not sure that people start up with, I want to get drunk, or I want to waste myself, although some people do. Some people have it like, until I'm drunk, I have not had enough fun. But sometimes I think a large amount of people who consume alcohol just want to relax. They want to have a good time, or they're just used to it.
Yeah.
They grew up in a family where alcohol is just normal, so they pick it up, they use it,
I think touching on the cultural elements that you raised, and I think that's a very good point because I am kind of like on the flip side of it, right? Obviously, as you know,
Yeah.
I was born in Kaduna, I grew up in northern Nigeria. And I think for the most part, alcohol consumption, and I'm not saying northerners do not consume alcohol, and I think there's also the religious element, being predominantly a Muslim, society. It wasn't as prevalent. And even if you find people that consume alcohol, obviously it would be more men than women. So on the average, most women would just not drink. So I never grew up around alcohol. And I think personally as well in our household, we just, my dad, I guess, never drank. And he never bought or had alcohol around the house. So it wasn't something I grew up with. And then coming to the UK and seeing, oh, it's a norm. Everybody drinks. It's just, what you do. You socialize. Without alcohol, you can socialize. And on the party side of things, I hear people say things like, oh, there's no party without alcohol. So I was like, okay. So this is a thing,
Yeah.
So there's that influence that people have, I guess, based on how they grew up, religious reasons. And I think for me, it's just never really been a part of my life.
Yeah.
So when I go to, to your point, in terms of going to the bar with colleagues after work and things, now my colleagues know that I don't drink alcohol. So I'm always looking out for the next, non-alcoholic drink or the new drink in the bar. I'm always that person curious about, okay, what do you have that's non-alcoholic? And they might come up with this dusty bottle of a spirit that, because nobody is asked of it, it's just been sat there. So I find that, anyway, interesting.
Yeah.
But moving on to, the next point, okay, people drink for leisure, for celebrations, as a reward. How do you then draw the line between, obviously, that drinking for leisure and then progressing to becoming a problem?
Right. Well, it's a thin line, as with many things that become addiction. First, it starts with, you just do it, then you find out that, like, I enjoy this thing. And, our brain, that's just a wonderful work of art that God created. And, when we consume anything or we do anything that gives us pleasure, our brain usually has a system that it wants to recreate it. Like, you did that thing, it was fun, let's do it again. So it goes with alcohol, but then there are other things that it goes with, even food, sex, gambling, other things like that. If it touches that part of your brain, it releases some hormones. You're talking about dopamine. And if it just makes you feel good, your brain is going to
want more.
Your brain is going to tell you, like, let's go to that place that we had so much fun yesterday and let's do it again. So your brain is reminding you that you got to do it. And, well, that's not your cognitive part, your reasoning part. So where your desire is in your brain is different from where you're reasoning, where you're choosing that, oh, yes, I had a good time yesterday, but it doesn't mean that it was good for my body, though. So there's a lot of reasoning and processing that we have to be doing for anything that we enjoy to be able to say, okay, this felt good, but is it healthy for me, though? Or maybe it's healthy and it just has to be in proportion. There are many things that are good. It's just that we sometimes may not be able to put them in proportion. And I think that alcohol is one of those things that when people, sometimes it could be genetics, it could be, they already have a disposition in their biology to get addicted to alcohol. It could be because maybe they have a generation of people who have dealt with alcohol. So it's in their system. It's just waiting to manifest. So for a child who maybe they've had generations of people who had problems with alcohol,
they're more likely.
They're already predisposed. And it's just waiting for the time when the child takes the first sip. And then that gene is like, we have it here. And then you just pick it up. And before you know it, you have a child that wants more. So it's not just physical environment introducing it to the child, but something within the child too, the genes, it's telling them, like, I recognize this. It's been coming from, like, your great grandpa, and that goes with different types of addiction. Now, another thing that could cause the addiction could be stress. A lot of our societies can be very stressful, trying to make it, or the trauma of the past. A lot of adults are people who have been broken as kids. We have So when one is just trying to make it through life and then you drink alcohol and you find out that I could totally forget about the stress of work, I could totally forget about what somebody did to me, or I don't have to worry. A lot of people want to go back to that space, that space where they don't have to think about something that went wrong.
Yeah.
And if they can go there, why not? So before you know it, someone is drinking
More and more.
more and more. And then, while we were thinking about this podcast, you remember I shared a story about one of my clients who deals with a lot of anxiety, and before he gets on the plane, what he used to cope with is he just has to drink a lot of alcohol so that he can get on the plane to fly, because it just deals with too much anxiety on the plane, would be throwing up and would just be restless on the plane. Sometimes it's as serious as he won't be able to go far. Like, they know from the beginning that this person might not be able to fly with the crew because they get very anxious. So he numbs it with alcohol. And, so there are different things that people go through with stress, with anxiety, sometimes depression, that makes them think that alcohol would be a good coping strategy. And I don't blame them for it, because they probably have found some type of relief. That's why they're doing it. If they don't find relief, they probably won't do it. Now, temporary relief though is different from permanent relief.
So what in that case? Okay, using your client as an example, what would you then recommend to someone like that who, they've gone through a hard time, maybe at work, they've got so much stress, they've gone through a difficult time, they've lost a loved one, because some people start drinking when they lose a loved one and things like that. What would you recommend as a solution, a more effective solution to manage the symptoms of anxiety, depression, or whatever it is they're going through, rather than depending on the bottle, which then makes their condition worse?
Right. So we love temporary fixes. Well, not temporary fixes. We love fast fixes.
Quick relief.
Quick relief. If I could have a quick relief and it's going to be for a lifetime, I would love that. But a lot of things that happen quick are not necessarily permanent. And that is for those kind of big situations, like if you're going through grief or loss of a loved one, either because of death or a broken relationship or even loss of work, and you're grieving. Alcohol consumption might take away, just being fixated on that loss, but it doesn't take away the pain in the long run. So once you just come down from wherever alcohol took you to, you will find out that you're still feeling all that pain, and sometimes even worse. So I would recommend therapy, psychotherapy, and talk therapy, not because that's what I do, but it does work, because what that does is it helps us face what we're trying to run away from. Because alcoholism or consuming alcohol, especially to the extent where we get addicted, or we drink so much that we're not functioning at all, it might look like a good option in the moment, but it doesn't take away all that pain. So when we sit down with someone, a therapist, someone who's trained, they can help us process what we're running away from. And sometimes that processing it's not what many people think it is. Sometimes people think like they'll be questioning me and asking me all these things I don't want to answer, or maybe they're going to be doing spooky things, like mystic. I don't know what people think out there about therapy, but it can really be healing. Imagine you had a friend who wants to sit with you and listen to you, that you can trust, but that person is really not a friend. So they're not biased, but they can really sit. If you want to talk, they're there. If you don't want to talk, they're there. They can ask you questions that you didn't even know that you needed to be asked. They can take you to places that you said you never want to go before, ever again. And it's going to be in a non-threatening way. So those are things that can be helpful. And there are different techniques for therapy. There are some that are typically used for those who are dealing with alcohol addiction, like cognitive behavior therapy, like motivation interviewing, and there are other ones that are also good to use.
That's interesting. Thanks for sharing. I want you to touch a bit more on the different techniques, therapy that, I'm sure there are many of them, but
Right.
the two you've just mentioned,
Right.
the cognitive behavioral therapy.
Now, it can be a mouthful.
Yeah, well,
Right. Yeah. So,
what is that?
Yeah.
To someone who has never had, obviously, I'm struggling to pronounce it.
who's
What
never
is
heard of that
CBT?
before?
And, how does it help the person to, I guess, transform
Right.
themselves?
All right. So, it would be cognitive behavior therapy. It focuses on how we think. And the therapeutic approach is helping an individual think about the event. So it's going to be a lot of talking with the therapist about the events that someone has gone through. Maybe something traumatic or something that caused a negative frame of process of a situation. So let's say maybe like one thing that happened that I know that I struggled with as a child was we used to have, like in Nigeria, thieves coming to the house, and we had it a couple of times, and plus all the I wouldn't call them horror movies, but they were scary movies. So those just affected my nights. I did not like the evenings. I actually used to have, on top of that, I had nightmares. I don't know if all those house being attacked a few times by thieves and then all the scary movies that was just on TV, and maybe, I'm sure, not maybe, all those added to my fear of the night, the fear of the evenings. And what I noticed over time was that I had to come to a point that I had to believe that it was okay, I'm safe. But for many years as a kid, I didn't believe that I was safe. And now, being an adult, even though I know that I'm safe now, it's still lodged in my mind that it could affect my sleep. So I've had to go through a lot of rethinking and reprocessing what happened as a kid. So somebody else might be listening, and maybe it's something else you went through as a kid, or maybe even as an adult, whatever that is. And we have negative beliefs already. Might say, I'm not good enough.
I think what I can put my hand up is when it comes to finances, right? I was saying to someone joking the other day, I was like, okay, if I go on a website and I'm shopping, right, I go on ASOS, I always sort by low to high. And I'm like, and then one day I was like, okay, but there are people who go there, who want to buy, I guess, the more expensive things because they believe, and I've even heard someone saying that, oh, they believe if something is more expensive, it's more valuable. But I'm thinking, I just want low to high. I want to buy the cheapest things, whatever I can get, good bargain all the time.
Right.
And I think that has, in a way, affected my, I don't know, maybe thinking about money. And now I'm consciously trying to retrain myself, that it doesn't always have to be, the cheapest of the cheapest in every situation. But that's
right.
That's by the way. But
yeah,
it's just interesting to see
some
the
people
different things that
might think that's a
thought
good
process.
skill to have. Like yeah, I want to be able to make use of money well. Like, okay, but I would say you have good taste, Booqii. Whatever you buy, no matter how, it doesn't even look cheap. So, yeah, that suggests that example you gave, you know how to shop. Let me just say it that way.
Thank you.
Big bucks for
I'll
the
take
money.
that as a compliment.
It is a compliment, girl. All right. So, a therapist helps an individual think about whatever that stress is or whatever that situation is that happened to them and came up with a negative thought process, because usually when events happen to us, we process it in a certain way, and a lot of times we might process it in the wrong way. You know, we always end up with a belief like, I'm not good enough, nobody loves me, I'm a failure. Even when you are told that, you don't have to believe that, because it doesn't mean that it's true. I'm abandoned, I will always mess up. So there are, or I'm going to die, something evil is going to happen. So there are many things we pick up from events. And because we picked up those things, it affects how we behave. So cognitive behavioral therapy. So a therapist helps us go back to the event, process, and helps us think about those negative thoughts and reframe, help us have a new language to those things, so that we're not thinking like that, so that then our behaviors can be different. So for someone who's dealing with alcohol and maybe stress related or even cultural related or social related, where like, well, I need to blend into my group, they will not accept me until, then maybe then they can learn that I'm worthy and I can stand on my 2 feet and decide that I don't want to drink to fit in. If someone wants to love me or appreciate me as a colleague without drinking, they should. But not everybody has that confidence. So with CBT, they can. And then, you want me to say something about?
Oh yeah, you're the other one, the motivational
interviewing.
thing. Yeah.
And motivation interviewing is also a therapeutic approach where, many people want to do awesome things. Like there are many people who drink who don't want to drink anymore, or say they don't want to drink anymore because it's an addiction, and they're like, I want to be free from this addiction because it's taking all the money in their banks. Addiction can be terrible, because some people, they just empty their bank accounts. That's how it's an addiction, where it's taking over your life, where it's affecting your finances, it's affecting your relationships. You don't see it affecting you as much as other people are seeing it. You're not able to function as you would have functioned in the society, or even for yourself. Now it's affecting your biology, your health, physical, mental health. That's an addiction. But, when that is happening, we should know that we need help and we should seek it. But all that can be going on and someone might not see it.
Yeah.
So with motivational interviewing, the therapist or the counselor is trying to move the client through the process of change. They're just trying to help a client see the incongruence, or let me use another word. They're trying to let them see that, okay, you say you want to change, but then this is what you're doing. So it's different. Like,
I think I need some of those motivational. I say I want to work on my fitness, but then
right,
sometimes I'm not doing as much as I should be doing. But anyway, carry on.
Totally. Yeah, like you can use motivational interviewing for anything, like for food. Just get up and do what you need to do. I need motivational interviewing in my life too. I tell you, there's so many things that I would say I need to do, but then do you really want to do it? So we can have like really good ideas and really, but many people stay in the space of ambivalence. Like yes, I want it, but it's not very clear. So motivational interviewing just helps you to be really crystal clear about what your values are, your purpose, what you really want. So for someone who's dealing with alcohol addiction now, what do you really want to achieve? Do you really want to be free? So a, a therapist might help someone focus on what's important in their life, like their relationships. How has this affected your relationships? If the person says, I'm estranged from my family members, they don't even want to spend time with me. What does that mean to you? And like, okay, I lost a job. I didn't show up for a week because I have had this hangover or whatever, and just help them see how their actions are and what they want to achieve is not the same. And as they do that, the clients themselves start seeing clearly and start saying, oh, I want something different. And then the therapist can lead them on what that looks like until they get that difference that they want. A lot of times, if we don't let people see for themselves why they need change, they won't stick to it. So if someone says they want to do something because I say they should do it, they'll probably just go right back. But if they see themselves...
But then, what then happens when you see why you need to change? You just can't get yourself to change. So the example of, and this is a common example, like, sometimes when you have drinks at work or whatever, or colleagues or friends, and the next day when they've had this terrible hangover, they're like, I never want to drink again. Like, and sometimes like, oh, you know what? I'm cutting down for now. But you just can't, how do you get past that? What sort of tips would you have for everyday people? And again, this is not just about alcohol. This is not just about sobriety. The message we're preaching here, is, how to be better to ourselves, well-being, and just looking at life holistically. How do you make those changes when you desire it, you see it, but you just can't make it happen?
So there are a few things that we can do. I want to say kudos to people who say, I want to make a change, and they can do it.
Yeah.
There are people like that, like,
I know one.
Like, I'm going after this, I'm going to do it, but all of us have soft spots. There are some things we struggle with. It's just different for everybody. But when we have those things that we struggle with, it could be alcohol, it could be whatever your well-being needs, that, and I'm not doing good for myself, it, like, whatever this is, I want to get better in this area of my life, but I keep drawing back. One of the things that you can do, one, be crystal clear about what you want to achieve, like, what is good for me. We have to be honest with ourselves. Many times we're not honest with ourselves. Many times we choose the easy way out, like, well, I'm like that, I can't change. That's not you being honest with yourself. First, we can change. So just know that if you can think it like, this is good for me, you can achieve it. So let's be honest with ourselves. Then when you're crystal clear, like, I don't want to do this anymore because it's affecting me in this way, and this is not the direction I want for my life, then you need people to hold your hands. Some of us need people to hold our hands on this journey. And a therapist is someone who can hold your hands. Your accountability partner can hold your hands. For some people, it's their partners. For some people, it's their friend. Some people, it's their siblings, their parents. Be open to let people speak into your life. In Nigeria, where we come from, everybody speaks into your life. Like, the person
positive and negative.
Yes, the person on the street can say, no, you don't dress like that. Or, everybody has an opinion about you. And maybe that's crazy, and that's traumatizing. For me, I was traumatized by the comments people had to say about me, and I'm still walking through the healing of that. Growing up in a space where everybody has they want to say something. But if you can pick trusted people and let them speak over your life, you can choose, you can ask. They can help you on this journey of change. Just be vulnerable, open up. Even if you're not sure what's wrong and you think that something is wrong, you can sit with people and someone that you think I can trust, and let them walk through finding out what is the problem and help you That's the strength of community. Don't try to do it alone. If you've tried many times and you've failed, then don't
Yeah,
try to do it alone.
community.
Right. Like, oh,
I agree.
like that gym thing, and you have a friend
Yeah.
who's calling you. I know you shared with me that that helped, right?
Yeah,
Having
and to be fair, I personally struggle like sometimes to commit to certain things. And funny enough, after church today, I was saying to one of the ladies that I've been speaking to about, this whole fitness thing. And I was saying to her that I'm having my first personal training session this week. Now,
awesome.
this is my first. I don't know
Uh-huh.
how it would go and, how long I'll keep this going. But I think, to your point, and this is someone checking up on me that, oh, how far, what are you doing? And I think the sense of community, I think, is very important. And in the Western world, sometimes, at least for those of us who grew up in Nigeria, whereby you grew up with community. Like, even if you're not asking for opinion, people there's always that community there. And then coming here and then you're like, oh, on your own trying to struggle to do things. The sense of community helps. And I think for me, just having those people maybe in church, where they're like, oh, so what have you done about this? How far,
Right.
It just keeps you accountable. And I think that definitely
Right.
works for me.
That will work when you have some people pay coaches to help
Yeah.
them through things like the personal trainer. That so if you need to pay someone, if you look at the people around you and you're like, nobody is going the direction I'm going. All these people don't want to eat right, and I want to eat right. Then you have to look outside your circle. You're like, my mom doesn't want to eat right, my dad doesn't want, my friends don't want to eat right, but I want to eat right. Then you look outside your circle. That's why some people get trainers and they get coaches. So if your community where you are right now are not in line with where you want to be, you might have to go outside of that. And then I want to give a plug because I'm a therapist.
Please go for
and
it.
and because I know that it's still in some communities, it's still kind of like a social stigma having a
Definitely.
therapist. Like you got to be cuckoo to have a therapist. Like you're like going borderline crazy mad. It's not that. Like
I think in the Black community, definitely for sure, particularly Black male, like
right.
even if they have a problem, there's that thing that, oh no, I don't need a therapist.
Yes.
I'm fine. I'm cool.
Yeah.
And I think, well, I don't want to sound very gender biased, but I think there's that element of, oh, I'm the man, or,
Right.
yeah, and just
Right.
general.
Actually, men know they don't like therapy. Most men will be honest with you, be like, no. But I have male clients. I would say the United States, it has embraced therapy over the past couple of years a lot more, and other countries are catching up to it. But it's a good thing just to really have. I've had clients who say, I don't have a friend, or so I would want to tell you the things that I'm going through. And then there are people who say, I have friends, but I don't want to tell them what I'm going through. So they're not crazy. They just need to process life. And sometimes people go through heavy things. They need to process it. You don't have to drink because drinking doesn't process life for you. It gives you a temporary relief, but it doesn't take away that problem. You need to process it. You need an outlet. Some people do different things. They go do art therapy, they draw, relax. You want to relax, but sometimes you just need to get that information out. And you need someone who has a different perspective, who is skilled to help you see it without being judgmental, without giving you all the advice before you even say a word, who can really listen to you, help you bring out your own solution yourself. So I'm praying that wherever you are listening to this, that you can actually find a therapist, because I know some places have more access to it than others. And if you've been burnt by a therapist that you're like, no, that was crazy, I would never visit a therapist again, because I saw, it's just like a doctor, you might run into one that is not very professional, or they don't know what they're doing, but that doesn't mean that it still doesn't help. There's so much that we can say about this, Booqii.
Okay.
But
I think, well, before you go, I think we should try and round up. There was something you spoke about, I think, in one of your episodes of the Grounded podcast about routines and how those keep us grounded. Can you touch a little bit on that? Just, because I
Right.
found that personally useful for myself, and I think it'll be quite interesting for other people to hear.
Right. So and I'm wondering if it's the last
Yeah, it was
episode
the
that
last
we
episode.
we talked about morning routines and just things that we can do every day that can help us grounded in a crazy world. The way we start our days are very important. Like, how do you start your day? Because life is going to be life, and it's going to be ups and downs, right? So starting your day with intention, and for me, I want to be grounded. Before I know what the day holds, I want to be able to say, this is where I want my mind to be. And me being a believer in God, I want to start my day being grounded in God. I just want to focus on God, you know. I want to focus on the fact that He's big enough for anything that I face. I want to do that. So, and I do different things to help me get to that point. Sometimes, I want to exercise too. So sometimes I'm listening to songs. I love listening to songs. I love listening to Nigerian gospel songs. So I'm dancing while I'm brushing my teeth. And, I'm just exercising. So I'm doing good for my health, physical health, but also my
Your
spiritual
mental
health.
and spiritual, yeah.
And then I get to write down if I woke up with fears or whatever it is. Sometimes you just wake up feeling so down, and so I'm thinking, what is it? What's that trigger? Did I remember something? Did I dream? Whatever. And then I write it down and I present it to my source, my God. And that's taken care of. So I start my day. I do that every day, whether it's a good day or it's a bad day. I just do it. So my body knows a place to run to when it's troubled. It's not thinking of, oh, what's that quick fix? Because my quick fix has become my routine and where I go to when I'm stressed, So it will be nice that we don't wait for trouble before we have these routines that help us grounded. And I get grounded just focusing on what my body needs, my spirit needs, my mind needs. What does your mind need? So for you, I don't know what it is for you, for our listeners, whatever that is for them. I hope they can find it.
Yeah.
Like I found mine, and it continues to evolve in how some people want to know how many hours do I spend doing this, or how many minutes, or whatever. Life changes, but just make sure that whatever it is that keeps you feeling
you spend more
center.
time on those things, or at least create time to do
time
those
for
things
it in the mornings and do that. Do good for yourself. It's good to hear what other people have to say about life and about you, but know yourself enough to know what you need.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
And in even to something I said earlier about the whole, I've never done personal training before ever, and doing that, and I'm in a group where we were talking recently on the group around doing something for yourself, and one of the ladies said she bought a brand new car for herself last year.
Right.
And and initially they were saying, oh, can you not wait till this year, which is her 40th birthday, because potentially it was going to be like a big prize or gift to her. And she was like, no, she wanted the car and she bought it, and that makes her happy. And then I replied on that post. I'm like, well, to be honest, like buying a brand new car for me isn't like, it's great, it's nice, it's amazing, but it's not what I feel my body or what I need for myself right now.
Right.
I think for me it's more of, okay, these are the other things that I think, and she kind of encouraged me. And she's even one of the reasons why I ended up booking this what's it called, personal training thing, because she was like, okay, so what are the things? I was like, you know what, the kind of things I love is like, let me sit in my house, someone cooks for me, good healthy food, And then, when it's time to exercise, okay, go and exercise, go and do like someone that would just look after
you wanna
me
be
in the
pampered.
dream world.
I
would
love
have that over a new car. It's like, okay, well, then invest in it. I was like, okay.
Right.
And I'm trying to do that and do more of that.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much for your time today. And
I love this.
thank you to our listeners. And we're really excited that you've tuned in to listen to us today. Obviously, our message on this podcast is encouraging you to, into sobriety. Obviously, our message on this podcast is encouraging you in sobriety, cutting down alcohol and looking at many other drinks options that are out there. Because the more I go to bars and restaurants with friends and colleagues and, family, I'm always that sober curious person, always asking what's new out there. Because if you don't know what exists, there are many options. Because people say to me, when I go out socializing, I can only have orange juice or Coke, when I'm not drinking. I'm like, no, you haven't asked. And, and sometimes if you don't ask, you don't even know what they have.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking out for new things. And one of the new products I found, and again, this is a brand, it's a company that I love so much. I've used some of the non-alcoholic spirits before in the past. And recently they launched this pina colada spritz. So it's not a real pina colada. As you can see, it's quite clear. It's a spritz, so it's kind of like a sparkling pina colada flavor drink, which, I quite like it. And
I like it.
You're having it for the first time. I hope you do like it.
I'm having it for the first time and I'm almost done.
And I think my interest in sobriety has grown over time, and it's just made me explore, drinks options. And as many of you know, obviously I do have a mocktail mobile bar myself. So I'm always experimenting, trying to learn new things. But more importantly, people ask me, Booqii, why do you not drink? And my simple reason is I don't drink for health reasons, for faith reasons. I think those two are like the predominant ones. And we don't always have to wait for a health scare and a lot to cut down on certain things. Alcohol is one of the many things that does have an impact on our health. Sugar as well is one of the many things that has an impact on our health. So it's about looking at, okay, how can I cut down? How can I improve things, for my overall well-being? So any final words for our people before we go?
I would say like I said earlier, just be true to yourself. Like some people say, I'm true to myself, that's why I'm drinking alcohol. But is that a layer up there though? And you have to go deep inside. Maybe what you really need is love and affection. Maybe not another drink.
Exactly. It might not be.
Maybe not another drink. Maybe that drink is just making you say, I don't care about love or affection. Just be true enough to yourself so you can look for the answers that you need, because then maybe you can talk to someone who can say, okay, let's dig into this more and find out why is this even a problem. Maybe someone can help you out there. So that's what I'll say. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. It's been an honor and pleasure, and thank you for being with us. And until next time, we'll see you again. Thank you.